This episode of Gateways to Awakening is brought to you by Vastu Feng Shui, a sacred technology that merges ancient wisdom with modern design. Our spaces are alive. They hold energy, memory, and frequency, mirroring our state of consciousness and shaping how we think, feel, and create. Vastu Feng Shui is the first app of its kind, a harmonizing space design system that reads your birth chart and your home's energetic compass to offer personalized remedies for balance and flow. Imagine walking into your home and instantly feeling clarity, creativity, and peace. Rooted in over 10,000 years of Vedic science, Vastu Feng Shui maps your planetary blueprint and translates it into modern activations using sacred geometry, yantras, crystal grids, color frequencies, and spatial alignments to turn your home into a sanctuary for abundance and love. You can go ahead and download the Vastu Feng Shui app now on the Apple App Store or visit vastufengshuiharmony.com to begin your transformation. I'm excited to share the release of my new book, A Glitch in the Matrix, 10 Energy Codes to Become the Main Character of Your Life. I wrote this book because most people are living inside a program that they didn't consciously choose. They wake up, react, stay busy, manage time or stress, but never really learn how energy actually works or how natural law is shaping their life. This book is about breaking that loop. Drawing from over 270 interviews on my podcast, Gateways to Awakening, my latest book, A Glitch in the Matrix, 10 Energy Codes to Become the Main Character of Your Life, is a practical guide to understanding how energy moves, how natural law operates, and how to stop leaking your power into unconscious reactions. This book is about reclaiming sovereignty. So if you're ready to live from awareness instead of autopilot and to write a script that actually feels like the movie that you want to watch and be in, check it out. It's called A Glitch in the Matrix, 10 Energy Codes to Become the Main Character of Your Life. You can find it on Amazon, Audible, and wherever books are sold. Hi, my name is Yasmeen Turayhi, and this is Gateways to Awakening, where we host one-on-one conversations with leading experts in wellness, well-being, and spirituality. Today's show is with Jose Barrera, a software engineer and application architect specializing in data representation and languages, and he's been fascinated by alchemy and Egyptian culture for more than 20 years. He's an avid photographer. His work has been exhibited in galleries in Chicago and New York City and sold at Sotheby's auctions. And he was born in Colombia. He also holds a master's degree in computer science. And I actually came across his work, I think it was like on YouTube a while back, and came across his book on the Temple of Dendera in Egypt. And having spent some time at the Temple of Dendera myself, I was very intrigued to spend some time together and get to know all the layers of this temple and the wisdom that might be in it. So welcome, Jose, to the show.
Oh, thank you so much for having me, Jasmine.
So to kick it off, Jose, for those who are listening who may never have heard of the Temple of Dendera, what is this place? Where is it? And what first drew you to this temple? When did you realize that it would become this like lifelong focus?
Yes, so the Temple of Dendera is a late temple in ancient Egypt. It's one of the last temples that they built. It is an hour north from Luxor today, and is a place. It was a very famous temple, but is not as visited as it could be. It is famous for the light bulb of Dendera. I don't know if you heard about that. Like probably yes. Uh, so there are some reliefs in the walls on the crypts of the temple
Yes.
that resemble a light bulb. So there is all this long line of uh, people who claim that there was light there. Uh, Probably like when was this? I published a book like 3 years ago, but I went to Egypt with my daughters and wife. It's gonna be probably like 8 years or 9 years ago, and we stopped at Dendera, and it's the most spectacular place I've been to.
Yeah.
they have a beautiful, the most shocking thing about the temple, well, one, there are so many things about shocking about that temple, but one of them is that it's in pristine condition. And that's unbelievable because it's a temple that is 2,000 years old, a little bit more, not that old in Egyptian years, right? Like if you think about there are temples there that are probably like 2,000 years older than that, 1,500 years older than that. But this temple is in pristine condition. It's probably the best preserved temple in all Egypt. And the jewel of this temple is a ceiling in its pronaos. The pronaos is the room where you have columns, and it used to be a standard Egyptian architecture at the entrance of every temple. And this is like like 7 stories high. It's like is this massive place where you come in, and then you look up and you see a sky that they just cleaned like probably like 15 years ago, 10 years ago, and is with its original colors. They just clean it up, and it looks as if it has been painted yesterday. Is in perfect condition, and is one of the most beautiful scenes that you will ever see if you ever go to Egypt. And I think you would agree with that, right, Jasmine?
Oh my gosh. I mean, it was unbelievable when I saw it. And we'll go into what is on that ceiling because, I was really moved by the astrological symbolism and the history, associated with that. There's so much to say about that temple, but yeah, I mean, it does look like it's brand new or that hasn't been tarnished with that much. And there's something interesting about time in Egypt in general. There's a famous quote, for example, right in front of Giza that says, "Man fears time, but time fears the pyramids." And I think that we can apply that to places like Dendera as well, right? There's something interesting about the concept of time with some of these temples that were built. And I am so fascinated by all of it. So could we talk about what, you mentioned the light bulbs that were, in the temple, and that it was like, a temple of light. What about what was on the ceiling? What did you notice? What was kind of your first impression, and what did you see?
Okay, so the first thing is that, so close your eyes for a second and look upwards, and you see a starry sky full of very strange figures, right? Like the Egyptian gods, and they're alien to us. They're from another time. And you look at them, and they, all of a sudden, what you see when you look at this massive ceiling is that you can notice and you can recognize some images that are familiar to us. And it's the only thing, if you're a Westerner and you don't know about Egypt, then all these images that you see in the ceiling are completely alien to you, except the images of the zodiac, the 12 signs of the zodiac. And so the first thing that I thought when I entered this place is that 200 years ago, when Napoleon went to Egypt, in his expedition to Egypt, his people ended up in this temple. And imagine you have all these French people right at the height of the Enlightenment with Napoleon Bonaparte, and they think they are the kings of the world, and they show up in this place that has these structures that are bigger than life, bigger than anything you've seen in Europe, in the enlightened Europe of Napoleon, and you don't understand a single word of what is on the walls because we forgot how to read hieroglyphs. So imagine the shock of that. And at the time, half of the temple was covered in sand, and they looked up and they recognized the same images that you can see today. And so imagine you get a message from an alien planet, and when you read it, you don't understand anything, right? It's just symbols. And all of a sudden, you start to symbols that you know and you recognize.
Yeah.
That's
It's
what I
wild.
think happened to them.
What's your theory on that? I mean, I completely agree with you. It's like there's so much information, symbolic, I would call it, I don't even know, like images,
Hmm.
depictions, and then there's the zodiac. And it's not just the zodiac. I mean, it is a very beautiful artistic representation of the zodiac. And what struck you about some, and do you know modern like astrology? Do you know like all the terms around that?
A little bit. I'm not a student of. I study astronomy a lot, and the astrology is the grandmother of astronomy. So
Yes.
yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Everyone, a lot of people don't know that astronomy actually came from astrology.
Oh yeah, just like chemistry came from alchemy, and these are so the difference between them and us, right? Is only superficial. They were as human and as smelly and as ugly and as beautiful as we are, right? They were humans. But they spoke a different language than us, not only the language, but they spoke in symbols, symbology. We are now in a culture since the Enlightenment that aims for precision. So
Mm.
what you try to do is you have to be very precise in your terms so you can describe things very narrowly. And that's a fantastic superpower. It's like having a laser point where you can describe things in the most minute way, such that we are able to talk today through this
Yeah.
microphone because we were able to make a language that is capable of describe things like sound. And when you do that, you get the power to do what we're doing now. So that's the superpower of ours or our civilization and more modernity. But the problem with that, with precision, and this is a term in data science, is that you lose recall. So think about a spotlight and a laser, a spot, yeah, uh, imagine a room with a light bulb and a laser beam. With the
Mm.
laser, you're focusing all the energy and attention in one thing.
Yeah.
But when you turn the lights on your room, then the light is everywhere, and then you can see many things around you. So
Mm.
the difference is that you lose generality when you gain precision, and the other way around. So today we're confined and trapped in language to that precision, which means that there are things that linguistically don't make a record on us because we don't understand them. And
Mm.
that's my fascination with symbols, because there is another way to look at the world, and it's through the symbolic lens.
Yes.
And when you do that, it's like the difference between having a macro lens and a wide lens. uh, all of a sudden you can see a whole picture of things. With the other one, you can look at the details. So that's what symbology, right? And speaking in allegory and in
Yeah.
myths, is that's what it gives you. It gives you a sense of wholeness
Mm.
because you can see
Mm.
the whole picture. And if you can speak that language, then you can see things far away because all of a sudden you can see how things are interconnected, right? And what makes sense because it's a language that is looser than what we use. So you can express emotions. You can express, for example, you look at the gods, at the Egyptian gods, and they look like these alien creatures that have human bodies and animal heads, or the other way around. And the first thing you think with a Western mind that is not accustomed to thinking in symbols is that these people believe that gods have heads of animals. So they were so ignorant. And that was pretty much the attitude of the French people who arrived at Egypt, even though the buildings were bigger than them, right? Like
Right.
that's the paradox, and that's the beauty, is that you can create a civilization based on symbol and based on generality and based on wholeness, or but it's a binding place, right? It's a you bifurcate, because if you have precision, then you live in a world of technology than the one what we are, but we're deaf to this language of symbols. And I would imagine the other way is the same. Imagine that you're a person who is very symbolic and very speaking allegory and emotionally, and all of a sudden you talk to, say, a mathematician, and you can notice the difference, how one aims for feeling and emotions and texture, and the other one aims for precision, and that creates an incredible barrier between both sides. So the trick is to learn to integrate those two things, because when you do it, you can extract the essence that was encoded in these images and these pictures.
Yes. I love that you speak about this, and I've heard it in like other like words and descriptions. We had folks from biogeometry on the podcast, and they spoke about it as like right brain perceptual thinking versus left brain perceptual thinking. So looking, and then also other people saying the difference between a diffused and narrow, diffused awareness, which is like wide,
Mm-hmm.
and then a narrow awareness, which is very deep and precise.
Mm-hmm.
And most people are stuck in narrow, or because of the Western mind, which is focused on getting really good at one thing and doing the one thing over and over again,
Yeah, but
right?
if
Like
you
one
think about it,
industry.
everything is
Yeah.
linguistic, right? Like
Yeah.
it is language, the one that forges our personalities. Think about like Latinos, right? Like, so what do you think about? Oh, these guys are like, they only like to party, and it's like they're romantic and they're emotional. And think about Germans. Oh, they are like the most precise people in the world, and they're always on time. And look at the contrast, and then uh, compare the difference between the both languages. Spanish, for example, there is something called a diminutive that you don't have in English, for example. And what it means is that there is a term in Spanish that is casita, which means little house. But you see how in English you only have houses. You don't have casitas. And that term implies scale and size, but it also implies a warmth. So when you call something with its diminutive, is a term of affection. So you see how the language itself encodes the way we think about the world. So it's a stereotype, but I think it's valid in many ways, right? Uh, Latinos are emotional. We are emotional. And then look at Germans. Germans have a different superpower. Their words can be concatenated together. So they can create new words where you can say in one word, I don't know, the black thing that is at the left in my table, right? Imagine that. All of a sudden you created that word. You can refer, you have a shortcut to name things incredibly precise.
Mm.
And think about the Nordic personality and of people who have like Germanic languages.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. I can definitely relate to that as someone who is Middle Eastern.
Uh-huh.
Our language also, I mean, there's so many words to say the same thing, and we're very expressive people,
Mm-hmm.
and I think language is a huge barrier in terms of understanding other people, cultures. I think I remember hearing that, like at least in college, most of the classes in Arabic, Hebrew, and Chinese were the highest number of credits. So it just required a lot of depth to learn these languages. And it's funny because there's also a lot of conflict with like all those countries. And there's something interesting about that, like how hard it is, how different it is in terms of contrast. And like when people are saying something, they actually mean something very different when it's translated. I love this conversation. I'm like so curious. How does this, because obviously Dendera and Egypt, I mean, ancient Egyptian temples in general have a ton of symbology, like so much symbology.
Here is where the story of language gets interesting. And is Egypt, like ancient Egyptian, is a very interesting language, right? And is a language that was lost for 2,000 years until it was rediscovered with the Rosetta Stone by Jean-Francois Champollion, who was a French guy obsessed with with languages. He was like a genius. And the Rosetta Stone has the same text inscribed in three different languages. Uh, the third of them, right? Like so, ancient Egyptian, like in hieroglyphs, then in the cursive language that they used, and then in ancient Greek. And all of a sudden, you have a mapping table where you can start trying to crack what corresponds to what, and that's how we unearthed this relic that was a lost language. But think about if you would have to imagine civilization disappears and the United States is no longer here, right? And 5,000 years go by and people start seeing our books and imagine that for some strange reason they cannot read them, right? But for some strange reason they find something with a few characters that are the characters that you recognize. And we can go back later on to the idea where we started of the recognition of the signs of the zodiac on the ceiling. But so if this civilization finds this and they reconstruct using mathematics and algorithms and the English, imagine how much of our culture and the nuance of what we have could they understand. So for us and for to try to believe that we understand what they wrote is very vapid. Is because it's very shallow because we lack the context and the nuance of every word that you have. So yeah, you can probably read cursive things, right? If you could reproduce the language or English, but you wouldn't get 99% of what says there.
Right. And our common denominator is the world of symbols, and art is a symbolic language. So
art, the world is made of symbols.
Yeah.
Because symbols encode concepts. And we don't live in a world of matter and atoms, and those are descriptions, symbolic descriptions of what we see. So the world is shaped by language. Language creates the world, and language are symbols.
Yeah. I love this. I'm just sort of sitting with that, and I'm curious when it comes to the symbols of the zodiac imagery in Dendera. What is your perspective on the ancient Egyptians' concepts of time and cycles, and also just the celestial sort of panels? Like, how do they understand the cosmos so deeply? Do you have any ideas? I mean, obviously, this is a big question.
Yeah. So anyone that tells you that they can say anything beyond educated speculation about the past, they're lying to you. So that's number one. But you can make, like, just like the analogy that we were saying, that you can start reconstructing things. There are educated things that we can say about what they did, right? And there is a lot of writing from the time, but from the point of view of the Greeks, like Egypt was conquered by Greece, and then they had 300 years of Greek dynasties. Cleopatra, she was she was a Greek,
Yes. Yeah.
and well, as Greek as my great grandsons are going to be Americans, right?
Yeah, I was going to say this might be controversial, but
but what happened is that their culture, the Egyptian culture, after 300 years of a different way of thinking, being there, got infused with Greek thought. And the Greeks knew about the Babylonians and the zodiac. The signs of the zodiac are Babylonian, and then the Greeks adopted them. And 300 years later, when they constructed this temple is a syncretic place of the amalgamation of a Greek and Babylonian culture and the Egyptian one. So it's syncretic. And if you notice the signs of the zodiac that they're there, they're clearly recognizable. They are the signs of the zodiac. They are. But what they have is they have an Egyptian flavor because they walk like an Egyptian. They look like that, right? Like they look, the classic idea we have about hieroglyphs, they manage to, I don't know if that's a word, Egypticize the signs of the zodiac and incorporate them in their beliefs and their culture. And that's where thing gets even deeper. And is that if you think about astrology and you think about astronomy, what the stars have is that they are immovable. So they go around, they go from the point of view of us, right?
Okay.
The sky is standing still. Like the differential positions of the stars in, say, a constellation, like 2,000 years and today, if you could measure that, that's nothing, right? Like the shape of the constellations hasn't changed in billions, or it's changing, but it's such a slow pace that for us, after 2,000 years, it looks exactly the same. And then it has a periodicity because the Earth turns around, and then every 24 hours, and then the dome moves on top of you and moves in a regular way. So that means that time at the end, and this is the difference, is that time is not a line. Time is cyclical. And think about every way we measure time is by looking at things that happen again, is cycles. So the clock is a cycle, right? The ticking of the clock is periodic. It happens and happens and happens again. So all of a sudden, if you see that the sky goes around and you realize that things happen in certain times that correlate to the position of the stars across the year in the sky, then you can start measuring time with the movement of the stars.
It's fascinating. Wow.
And think about the Egyptian civilization. They lived in the banks of the Nile, in the middle of the harshest desert in the world. Well, you would probably disagree, coming from Iraq, but I think there is a debate, right?
Yeah. I mean, no, I keep going.
So, but if you look at this place, is a desert covered in sand and with a beautiful paradox in the middle, and is the largest oasis in the world, which is the banks of the Nile River. So is this a stark contrast between life and death? And then to get things worse, the Nile floods once a year. There are floodings when you have torrential rains in Ethiopia. Then the water comes down with all the soot and all the nutrients that when it floods the banks, then it brings all the life from Ethiopia, and that's Egypt. It's a miracle. It's an oasis in the middle of desolation. But the other thing is that it's cyclical, because as the year goes by, the waters recede, and then land starts to dry up, and death starts to eat life, right? And you can literally, if you look at it, you can see how the is probably 12-mile wide green band on the sides of the Nile start to go away with the water. So death starts to encroach life. And a year later, when the water comes again, then the other cycle starts. And because they were an agricultural society, their existential question was, when is the flooding gonna come? Because things were getting out of water. And they realized that the dog star Sirius rises up for the first time in the year around the time when the Nile floods.
The Ceres star constellation, like that's what you said? Okay.
Yeah, Sirius, the dog star, right?
The dark star, is that what it's called?
Dog
star. I was like, oh, yeah, I don't know about the dark star. But no, okay.
No, that's Star Wars.
that sounds a bit ominous. But
so what they realize is they can use the stars to predict. But think about what we're doing. We're doing science here, right? And it's beautiful because it's symbolic science. Because what you're doing is you're encoding the passage of time just like we do, but in beautiful sacred symbols. And you know why the symbols are sacred?
Why?
Because their language, their phonemes, most of them were the names of the gods. So let's go back.
Say more about that.
Yes. So do you remember when we were saying that the world is made of language, of symbols?
Yes.
Now imagine that every sound in English, a, b, every sound that you utter when you're creating a word is the name of a god. What happens every time you talk, you're imbuing things, you are evoking literally divinity, because the sound that you are expressing is divine.
So can you give us the names of the gods, because a lot of people probably
so for example,
don't.
like the most
Like
obvious
Ra.
is Ra.
Ra, yeah.
Yeah, Ra is
Ra is the sun god, right? That's what
the sun.
Yeah.
Ra is the word that they use for the sun, but was the god Ra. And so any word that had the sound Ra, like Dendera, right? Like the names, they contain divinity. But if we live in a world made of symbols, and the names, the chants that we produce to name them, to point at them, is divine, we live in a divine world. And contrast that with what happens when your language is foreign to you. So it becomes an abstraction. So the sounds in English, to me, are abstractions. They're pointers that allow me to do precision, to be able to narrow down things in a precise way. But then language loses its soul because you're using it for precision, not for divinity. Because you took away the imbued divinity in language. And that's why language is sacred in many traditions.
Unless your name has Ra in it, right?
Barrera.
Oh, that's
Twice.
Interesting. I've got it in my last name too. That's fun. That's fun. I have an aunt who had gone to Egypt and was giving a speech at her daughter's wedding, my cousin. And she said, I found out after going to Egypt that my daughter, Sarah, was named after the gods. It's like, I thought that was so funny and so cute. I love that. So these like simple utterances are really a connection, with divinity. And I've heard this across the board with the word God, like Allah, Yahweh. I forget what are some of the other the other terms for God, but there's like always an exaltation.
Jehovah.
Yeah, Jehovah. Like there's always this like an awe-inspiring kind of sound that you make. Like wow, wow.
Right. Yeah.
Then I think that is God, right? It is the oh my God, like this exuberant, right?
Too.
Like yeah. I mean,
but we forgot.
Yeah,
we don't have it explicit. You have to start to make these connections in order to see them, but they're not explicit. Hence, the world is a dead place without meaning, but we can measure it and study it, but there is no divinity.
Ooh, Jose, that's a big one. I really love that. I mean, it's true. I do think that the way we, because I grew up between two cultures, so it was super interesting to me to see the contrast of having so many words in Arabic, for example, that could express emotions that I couldn't express in the English language, or even just the way the conversation, leaned into human experiences that I couldn't really see in American culture. Now, obviously I'm generalizing, but it does seem like there is something very, what's the right word? Sterile. Like there's a sense of it being sterile or like not exuberant or loquacious or, filled with the symbolism, I think, is huge. It's everything. Like how you connect the dots with the macro and the micro, I think is kind of missing, right? Like, and there's some really cool ways that you can use the English language. I mean, there's so many epic authors. So I'm generalizing, of course, but I think I agree with you. I think it's fascinating, the study of language.
Language for engineering. English, it's perfect for engineering. You know why? Because it's precise enough, but it's loose enough. Like the linguistic modulation in English is loose enough that allows you for creativity. So it's beautiful. It's a language for it's a very pragmatic language. It's very, very flexible in many ways. So English is fantastic. They have huge problems with the pronunciation, right? Like the idea you have like, what is the spelling bee thing? Imagine a language. Imagine a language.
Yes. Yeah.
Imagine how dysfunctional something has to be in order to have a contest to see how is that you spell a word. In Spanish, that would never happen because Spanish, how it sounds is how you write it. So you would ace a spelling bee. Everyone who speaks Spanish could ace it, right?
Wow. I'm so fascinated by this conversation. I mean, I think having gone to Egypt and explored the temples and especially Dendera, I vaguely remember hearing about a quote. I think it was dedicated to Hathor, although when I looked it up, I couldn't find evidence on it. But across the circles of people studying this space, this quote apparently has come up. And you can tell me maybe if you know of it. But it is, I think, a hymn dedicated to the goddess. Is it goddess Hathor? Yeah, Hathor's a goddess. That says, There's the sky and the stars make music in you. I don't know if you've ever heard of
Oh,
that. Isn't that cool?
yeah, wow. And you know what it is? It's beautiful because Hathor, among other things, she was the goddess of music.
Mm. Mm.
And but look at what music is. Music is vibration. Music is harmony. Music is cycles.
Mm.
So what is beautiful is that she's the goddess of cycles, the menstrual cycle. Like she's the goddess of fertility, right? There is a depiction of the menstrual cycle in the temple, and it's beautiful, right? Because they equated the menstrual cycle with where the word comes, right? Month, right? Menstruation is the word month, which by the way means measure. And so imagine that the cycle is synchronized with the movement of the moon.
Wow.
Think what that does to astrology. You see,
Yeah.
astrology is scientific,
Yep. Yeah.
but express is science expressed in symbols
Mm.
because it's the science of time and cycles.
Mm. I'm a very I'm very entrenched in the world of astrology. I'm a co-founder of a Vastu app, which is basically India's version of Feng Shui based on planetary alignment. And we
Mm-hmm.
do personalized Vastu astrology. So we give people exact coordinates in their home and, work with gemstones and yantras and deities to remedy planetary geometry. Let's put it that way. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm very aware of the symbolic nature of the universe. And I love the way that you just shared that, the science expressed in symbols. And
Yeah, what
yeah,
happens,
it's
you
fascinating.
know, that's the funny thing is that I I am a scientist, right? Like so that's my side. But I found that and it's beautiful, you can make straight one-to-one relationships that are isomorphic, right? Is not a coincidence. Like if one thing is a coincidence, then okay, that's a coincidence. If two things are a coincidence, okay, that's a coincidence. When you get 10 aces or ten heads on by flipping coins, getting 10 is the coin is loaded, right? Because it cannot be other way. So when you look at things and you start to find structural identity between two different languages, which is the scientific language and the language of physics and symbols, then is the same thing expressed in a different way.
Mm, wow. Oh my gosh. Well, I have so many more questions, but we are coming to time, Jose. I mean, yeah, I feel like we could talk for another hour about Dendera. I'm also just aware of your greater awareness of all the micro macro cosm kind of playing out and your adoration of language. And I think that you see this perspective because you're using your right brain and left brain, right? Like you're an engineer, but you're also an artist and a photographer and, studying languages. And that's a rare combination. I don't know a lot of people that sit in both of those worlds. So I really appreciate your point of view. What
Thank you
about,
so much. Yeah, go
yeah, what
ahead.
about, I have 100 questions I want to ask you. So I'm going to just try to leave it to like the last one or two. Let me see. Let me think. What do you feel the builders of Dendera were trying to preserve for future civilizations?
Nothing.
Hmm. Okay.
And the reason is that time is cyclical and things come and go. And going is as important as coming. So when you think in cycles, you're not thinking about future civilizations because that's linear.
Hmm.
The future civilization is the next pharaoh. And
Hmm.
time literally the chronology of Egypt started every time a new pharaoh was born.
Oh, wow.
So time, they didn't do anything for future civilizations. They did it for eternity. And that's the difference. They did it because what they were creating are things that stay across cycles.
Mm, mm,
So they did it for divinity, to preserve symbol,
mm,
because the symbols were sacred. That's why they inscribed them in stones, to preserve them for eternity, not for humans. They are
mm.
divine.
Wow. I love that so much. It makes me just so overjoyed. And I remember when I spoke to the biogeometry folks, I forget, I've interviewed so many people at this point. But I remember vaguely, I think it was Ibrahim Karim saying, we think about life as humans in this Western mind, that there's an afterlife, that like we go on to the next linear thing. But he's like, it's not actually an afterlife. It's the other life, and it's happening at the same time as this life. And I love that so much. I think that speaks to your point that there is, that we are always looking and asking questions from the lens of linear time. That's the way that we
We can,
can feel safe,
and
maybe,
we can only live in the present. That's the only time we have, is the present. But
Yep.
what we do with it is what matters.
Yeah.
Because if you can create things that transcend time, means that you become immortal. But they did it for themselves.
So beautiful. Wow. So much to think about after this conversation. What sorts of things have surprised you the most on your journey? If you were to look back on all your discoveries, like everything that you kind of photographed and sat with, what has surprised you the most?
I think the thing, and this is the most endearing and beautiful thing about Egypt, is its innocence, its symbolic innocence, its purity. Once you realize that those symbols are not aliens, they're aliens to us, they're alien to us. But once you get familiar with them, what you realize is that the hieroglyphs, which means the sacred signs, what they are is the animals, the birds in the Nile, the scenes in the Nile, the utensils they used. Why? Because they were divine. Because they were the union of gods in language. They were imbued with divinity. So they put them in stone, and then the birds of the Nile are divine. The beetles are divine.
Hmm.
Everything is divine.
Hmm. Hmm. I love that.
And that's the
Uh,
most beautiful thing about Egypt.
wow.
Is, in my opinion, the most refined culture ever been, because it was a perfect harmony and symphony with its surroundings. And the reason it couldn't be anyway, they were optimizing. That was an engineering project, optimizing for survival. And the way they did it is by becoming one with the Nile and its animals and living the same cycles.
So, Jose, what sorts of things have surprised you the most on this journey?
What surprised me the most about this journey, my life, or this journey to Egypt?
It could be about like anything that, as a photographer, as a scientist, as a observer of humanity when it comes to the Temple of Dendera and some of your work.
The beauty of existence. I think every day I wake up, I feel like I'm a newborn in this beautiful miracle, because there is the mystery of mysteries, existence.
Hmm.
So, and we have the privilege to experience it. Experience is divine because it's finite. It's beautiful.
Mm.
And we have just a little bit, an instant to smell it. And then it goes away. What surprised me most about these people going back to Egypt is that they knew it. So they lived their lives accordingly. Look at Egyptian funeral tombs, right? Like people say that they had a mortuary culture. Egyptian culture was a celebration of life. Even in their darkest moments, that is the death of your incarnated God. What you do is you make them rooms full of color. Think about that. Is an homage to existence, to the finite moment that the Nile gives you to be green before the sun covers it again. So think
Wow.
about how valuable life is, how divine,
I love that.
how beautiful. That's why we have to inhale and smell and take every moment, because it's divine. And it's divine because it ends. Everything that has a beginning has an end.
The cycles. I love it. I love that so much. What do you want to tell people as a main takeaway, call to action to contemplate as we wrap up this conversation? Like, what's the main call to action?
Remember that we're the center of the universe. Everything revolves around us. Since the moment we're born till we die.
So beautiful. What a great place to end. And where can people find you, Jose? Where can they pick up your book? Where can they learn more about what you're up to? Is there a website, or should we just share the link to your book?
We can do both. Thank you.
Okay, great.
So my book is called Dendera, Temple of Time. And they sell it in major bookstores. And the book is about how the Egyptians saw the cycles in the sky. And then my website is my long name, so you can find me and I'll send you a link for that. And that's it.
The website it's a long name. It's not Jose Barrera.
No, it's josemariabarrera.com. So
Okay. Okay, perfect. Yeah, we'll definitely include that in the show notes. I'm sure people are going to be very excited to spend time with you. And wow, I mean, so much to unpack in this conversation, Jose. I'm so grateful for you. Really, I enjoyed this tremendously and was such a great reminder of really the important things in life. So thank you so much for your time.
No, thank you.
And for our audience, thanks for joining and for listening. In this episode, we learned about the Temple of Dendera, ancient Egyptian philosophy, and the meaning of time and cycles and so much more. Language with Jose Barrera, and you can check out his book on Amazon about the Temple of Dendera. And you can tune into Gateways to Awakening, where we host one-on-one conversations with leading experts in wellness, well-being, and spirituality. Thanks again. Hey there, it's your host, Yasmeen. If you've been enjoying Gateways to Awakening, I'd love to invite you to go even deeper with me. You can visit innerknowingschool.com to sign up for my newsletter, where I share exclusive insights on intuition, consciousness, and personal transformation. And if you're ready to take your journey to the next level, you can join my next group coaching cohort, where we explore practical tools to help you trust your inner knowing and navigate your life with clarity and confidence. You can also follow my latest thoughts and discoveries on my Substack. The link is in the show notes, or you can connect with me on Instagram at @TheRealYasmeenT, where you can find my Substack on my Linktree. I absolutely love hearing from my audience. So please send me a message and let me know, what are you enjoying? What would you like to see more of? And if you found value in this podcast, it would mean the absolute world to me if you left a review. Your feedback helps others discover gateways to awakening and join this incredible community of seekers and change makers. Thanks for being here. And as always, just wishing you the absolute best.